You're born in a cave, probably somewhere in Africa, Europe, or Asia. The first humans showed up around 2.5 million years ago, and early modern humans started appearing around 300,000 years ago. So you're here somewhere in that time frame. You find out pretty quickly that almost everything outside wants to kill you. In fact, most kids didn't even survive past 5 years old and died of lack of food, disease, accidents, or even animals trying to find their next meal, so you better enjoy all the time you have left. Early humans were not at the top of the food chain, and some of the animals hunting you and your family down were no joke. But the worst had to be saber-toothed tigers. I mean, look at this thing. I wouldn't go near it either. Some other prehistoric animals you had to worry about were giant short-faced bears, the biggest bear ever. If this guy stood straight up, he would be 11 feet tall and would weigh about 1,400 pounds. Even standing on 4 legs, they were still 5 feet tall. And I wish I could tell you those are the only animals you had to worry about, because there's also dire wolves, mammoths, and leopards, and all of them were bigger, stronger, and faster than you. Unfortunately, there are more animals trying to eat you, but those are the main ones you have to worry about for now. If you somehow made it past the age of 5, you still didn't have a ton of time. Most early humans didn't even live beyond the age of 30. You lived in a small group of cavemen and are cared for by your mother, who has an endless supply of food conventionally attached to her. It's not the best thing in the world, but it'll do. Your mother, along with the other women in the tribe, helped raise you. Women were usually responsible for raising the kids and gathering food, like fruits, nuts, seeds, roots, and plants. The men were often responsible for hunting animals for food. They would use weapons like spears, bows, arrows, or traps to capture prey. They also were in charge of making the weapons and tools. Plus, they were counted on to defend the group from predators or other rival cavemen. Sleeping was one of the worst parts of your day. That and trying to use the bathroom. There wasn't a building with a toilet or anything nearby, so your best bet was going behind a tree. Not only did you have no privacy, but you better watch your back as well, because you never knew if there was something trying to eat you nearby. There were no such things as cribs, and babies slept wherever the family lived, in caves, shelters, or temporary huts, but most likely on the ground. And it's not like you had modern-day pillows or blankets, maybe a few leaves if you were lucky. By the time you reached age 5, you started training with your father to learn how to hunt and fight. You would have been taught how to handle weapons and trained in the art of tracking and hunting. You also would have gone on small hunts with your father or older male members of the tribe, learning firsthand how to really be a caveman, and how big these animals really were. I mean, one saber-toothed tiger has taken out your entire group. By the age of 13, it was time to start fully participating in hunting and possibly going on your first solo or group hunts. You've begun to prove yourself in hunting and other physically demanding tasks. Hunting for large animals required skill and stamina, and even with the weapons you had, there was no guarantee. Like I said, most of the animals you hunted were faster, stronger, and better adapted to their environment than you were. Even if you or other cavemen managed to catch enough food to feed your family, there was always the risk of a failed hunt, which was the majority of the problem for caveman back then. There were no crops or animals to ensure a stable food supply, and gathering wild plants and fruits could be unpredictable. Many plants were seasonal, and not all were safe to eat. Add in the fact that cave people had little understanding of which foods were toxic, leading to the risk of poisoning from accidentally eating poisonous plants or spoiled meat. So just add that to the list of things that could kill you. 13 was also the age that you needed to start thinking about finding a wife and kids. You might think this is a little young, but like I said before, it's not like you had a lot of time. There also weren't a ton of options for your soon-to-be wife. You were in a small group of maybe 20 to 50 people at best, so there was a high chance you'd be choosing between your cousin or your sister, but you still have a few more years to think about it. By the time you turned 17, you were considered an adult and physically capable of adult responsibilities. Now was the time to choose that lucky lady of yours and begin to form your family to try and make sure humans didn't go extinct, because that was an actual worry. This and the next 10 years was known as your prime of life. You were at your physical peak and could even be promoted to the leader of the group. Of course, you had more responsibilities to make sure everyone survived and had food, but another problem you had was caveman on caveman violence. There was no legal system or government, so criminal cavemen were free to do whatever they wanted. Even some caveman on caveman crime, like they didn't have enough things trying to kill them already. Caveman raids were not uncommon. A caveman could easily be killed in a fight, and entire families or communities could be wiped out in a single attack. Without the advantage of modern weapons or armor, defending yourself was one of the hardest things to do. The possibility of being captured, tortured, or killed by a rival group was just another thing to worry about. Injuries were a whole nother problem for you and other cavemen, especially when hunting large animals or during fights. Even a simple cut that could easily be treatable today could easily become infected, and without antibiotics, even the smallest injury could kill you. You also had to worry about diseases that aren't a problem for us today, like tuberculosis, smallpox, or the plague. Which doesn't mean a lot to us now, but back then it would most likely kill you. You also had to worry about parasites, like lice, ticks, and intestinal worms. Plus, there was no hygiene back then. The best bet you had at a shower was just going to any body of water, and they were definitely not washing their hands. So if a disease entered a caveman group, well, you might as well kiss all of them goodbye, and I can't even imagine how bad everyone smelled. Back in the Stone Age, there wasn't exactly modern medicine. In prehistoric times, there were no doctors, no hospitals, or anything like that, so not only was hunting dangerous, even just everyday tasks. Not to mention childbirth. Back then, many women died during or shortly after childbirth, and if the child even survived, like I said earlier, they had a high chance of dying in the first few years. Like, I'm sure you've noticed there were a million things trying to kill you back in the Stone Age as a caveman, and I wish that was everything because I haven't even mentioned one of the most dangerous things trying to end your life as a caveman early. Most of the time, your only shelter was a cave, and the weather back then wasn't anything to mess with. From freezing cold winters to scorching hot summers, a lot of the people around you were freezing to death or dying of heat stroke. Throw in natural disasters like floods, wildfires, or storms, and I'm not sure how any of them survived. Like, I am actually impressed. By now, if you somehow made it through all that, then you'd probably be around 30 to 40 years old. Honestly, not a lot of cavemen made it all the way here, and I didn't really expect you to, but we can talk about it anyways. Around this age is when you basically become a grandpa caveman. You started making more tools, taking care of children, and even learning a little bit of medicine. If someone broke a bone, they used splints made from wood, stone, or animal skins to stabilize fractures. They also drilled holes in the skull. Cavemen thought it could treat head injuries, skull fractures, or even mental illness. Some caveman doctors even performed amputations. If a limb was severely injured or infected, they would just cut it off. But I'm not really sure how they survived that. Maybe just using some leaves as a band-aid to help it heal? A life as a caveman was hard. Every day was a survival. Hunting animals, hunting other cavemen, and doing anything just to make it to the next day. But I'm not sure what that's gonna do against this 11-foot bear trying to kill you. But unfortunately for you, you were born during this time, so, good luck.